Well, welcome to Christian Answers. This is Pastor Jeff Short for another program where we take the Bible in one hand and we take the contemporary cultural news in the other hand, and we try to bring them together and apply the Bible truths to the contemporary Christian and secular worlds. And so today we're going to be looking at candidate Donald Trump. Donald Trump is said to be one of the most pro-life presidents ever to preside over the United States. I voted for him twice, basically because of his pro-life family values stands on issues such as abortion. And he did not disappoint Christians because he appointed 3 Supreme Court justices who were instrumental in overturning the Roe v. Wade decision that basically legalized abortion in all 50 states. He appointed judges and they overturned that. So Donald Trump has done great things for the Christian community. And he has won his accolades in the pro-life movement because of that. But recently, Donald Trump is making statements that may indicate that he is no longer in the pro-life camp. And I'm going to show some clips here. Commentator Matt Walsh is summarizing this issue, and I want to sort of jump in and make some comments of my own. So we need to really observe and analyze what Donald Trump is saying, because if in fact he is now no longer a consistent pro-life voice, then there's really no reason for people to vote for him. I certainly am not going to vote for a pro-abortion Donald Trump. I am not going to vote for a pro-LGBTQ Donald Trump. The very reason why Christians turned out, evangelical Christians, 80-90% evangelical Christians voted for Trump in the last election and in the one previous, was because he was talking and positioning himself as the pro-family, pro-Christian, pro-social issues candidate, in contrast to the ultra-radical, liberal, leftist Democrats. And of course, Christians would vote for the pro-family, pro-biblical, pro-life candidate, Donald Trump. But if Donald Trump is going to begin to speak more in terms like the Democrats, like the liberals on abortion, on gay rights, and so forth, then really that removes the main reason why Christians would vote for him. So I hate to talk in terms like this, but it may be that I simply don't vote for any of the major party candidates in the next election unless Donald Trump, unless this is like a glitch, this is sort of like a temporary gloss that he made, and now he will get himself back on track and start talking the way a pro-life candidate would talk. But let's hear the clips of what he said recently, and let's analyze what this actually means. So let me roll the clip.
Dog needs. You don't have to go out dog needs. You don't have to. Jumpstart trial bag can be at your door in just a few business days. Go to roughgreens.com. Jumpstart trial bag can be at your door.
Can a man become a woman?
In my opinion, you have a man, you have a woman. I think part of it is birth. Can the man give birth? No. Although they'll come up with some.
Okay, now before we dissect that, I want to play both clips because I think they're related. So let's play the other one that has people talking as well. Here he is a couple days later on Meet the Press, and this time the subject is abortion. And here's what he says.
Mr. President, I want to give voters who are going to be weighing in on this election a very clear sense of where you stand on
I think they're all going to like me. I think both sides are going to like me. What's going to have to happen is you're going to have to... Listen, you're asking me a question. What's going to happen is you're going to come up with a number of weeks or months. You're going to come up with a number that's going to make people happy. Because 92%
of... That's where he's wrong. And that's the first step. He is saying you're going to have to come up with a number, a point on the spectrum from conception to time of birth, and you're going to have to come up with that, and you're going to have to come up with a number that will make both sides happy. Well, that's totally nonsense. He hasn't been in the pro-life battle as long as we have. He's recently joined the pro-life battle. Maybe he's really had a conversion of the heart from pro-abortion to pro-life, and that's why was speaking for the last 8 years as if he's pro-life. But the battle has been raging for decades and decades, and it's not as simple as saying, well, we just come up with a number that both sides will be happy about. We're talking about the taking of an innocent life. We're talking about murder in the womb. You don't negotiate that as if you're negotiating a real estate deal. This is not about some politician or some businessman coming in and saying, okay, let's all sit down at the table and come up with an agreement. That is not going to happen. So he's off base right away because he's naive in the sense that he can come in and broker a deal. It's not that easy.
The Democrats don't want to see abortion after a certain period of time.
If a federal ban landed on your desk.
That's wrong. That is totally wrong. He is misrepresenting the sides right here. The Democrats do want to see a free abortion zone in the entire nation, 50 states, abortion zone where a woman can have an abortion at any point up until birth. And there are some that even talk about after birth, allowing the baby to die after it's born. So the Democrats are voting for and talking about and positioning themselves to have no restrictions on abortion. So it is not true. He may be looking at polls that say, well, Democrats feel uneasy about abortion after a certain time, say late-term abortions. But they don't vote that way because every Democratic politician that I've seen interviewed on Meet the Press or the news, they always position themselves as never setting a limit to the abortions, except maybe a few handful of Democrats that ever set any kind of hard and fast limits. The entire Democratic platform, the mainstream media candidates, they are all in for abortion at all time. So he's misrepresenting the Democratic position. He's actually making it seem like it's more reasonable, but it's not. It is a radical death zone from the time of conception to the time of birth. Anytime during that death zone, 9 months, the woman can abort her baby for whatever reason she wants. It's all up to her. That's another talking point. And so he's actually painting a rosy picture for the Democrats, and this is totally inaccurate. The first thing he needs to do is get himself aligned with reality on what's actually being proposed by the Democratic Party. And he needs to also stop thinking that he can come in and broker an abortion deal that'll make everyone happy. He can come in, but he cannot make everyone happy. And his 3 picks for the Supreme Court didn't make everyone happy. The decision that they made to overturn Roe v. Wade didn't make everyone happy. So he has no track record of doing exactly what he says he can do. But he's making these assertions anyway. So he's out of touch with reality on this point. He needs to get in touch with reality, or it's going to be really hard to vote and support him in the upcoming general election. It's really difficult.
If you were reelected, would you sign it at 15?
Are you talking about a complete ban?
A ban at 15 weeks.
Well, people are starting to think of 15 weeks. That seems to be a number that people are talking about right now.
Would you sign that?
I would sit down with both sides and I'd negotiate something, and we'll end up with peace on that issue for the first time in 52 years.
No. Again, this is simply words that he's giving us. He's simply talking in terms of, I would do this, I would do that. This will be great. I'll come in. I'll bring peace for the first time in 50 years over the abortion issue. No, you won't. This is so naive. This is so unrealistic. I can't believe that he is trying to pull this
I'm not going to say I would or I wouldn't. I mean, DeSantis is willing to sign a 5-week and 6-week ban.
Would you support that? You think that
I think what he did is a terrible thing and a terrible mistake.
That's what he did was a terrible mistake. Why would he say that what Ron DeSantis did was a terrible mistake? Ron DeSantis limited the vast majority of abortions in that state. So why would he criticize that? So is he really pro-life or is he not? Let's hear what Matt Walsh has to say about Trump.
Okay, now, so let's talk about both of these together. Obviously, it goes without saying that there's no reason to hesitate on the can a man become a woman question. And there shouldn't be any answer other than no. Okay, if you're saying anything other than no, anything, the first words out of your mouth after you hear can a man become a woman, no. Then
Exactly.
You can elaborate on how crazy that idea is. First word should be no.
It's very simple.
Anything but an immediate no is a wrong answer and also an embarrassment. And if that doesn't, if you don't see why that is, then just imagine any other basic scientific question getting that kind of answer. So what if, just to show you how ridiculous this is, imagine if Megyn Kelly had for some reason asked, do you believe in gravity? Does gravity exist? And then Trump had said, well, listen, in my opinion, there are some who say that human beings can fly, but I think probably not. What? What kind of answer is that?
It's not an answer.
Why? In my opinion. But first of all, people are focusing on the part of it. In my opinion, you don't need to qualify something like this by saying, it's not your opinion, okay? Just like it's not, when I say gravity exists, that's not my opinion. So in my opinion, gravity exists. In my opinion, the sun is bigger than the earth. It's not my opinion, that's just a fact.
It's not a biological fact.
So that was a weak and convoluted answer
Really
where
bad.
Clear and concise is needed. And where there's simply no conceivable reason why you would give anything but a clear and concise answer. Keep in mind what I'm always saying about this issue, that on the left, they can't answer these questions. So for them, that's a stumper. This is the beautiful thing about being a conservative, is that basic common sense questions are not stumpers. We don't have to be worried about them. Someone could throw it at us and that's easy. Yeah, 2 + 2 = 4, no problem. It's only on the left where it becomes, oh my gosh, I got to figure out how to navigate around this. That's the advantage we're supposed to have because we're supposed to stand for basic fundamental truths.
Exactly.
When we talk about being conservative, we are conserving
The
basic
truth.
fundamental truths. Or maybe not conserving the truths themselves because the truths will persist whatever we say about them. We are we are conserving our understanding, society's understanding and acceptance
Of the truth.
of these fundamental truths. So that's an advantage we're supposed to have. But because the left can't answer these kinds of questions,
they have to hem
or at
and
least
haw.
they can't answer in a way that is not humiliating for them.
They have to
Because if they're asked
twist
the
and
question, can a
trick
man become a woman? They're probably not going to say yes. Some of them will. But if that was a Democrat politician sitting there, probably not going to say yes because they know how crazy that sounds. So instead, they're going to start equivocating and they're going to be off in the weeds and they're going to talk about opinions and how everyone has different perspectives and so on and so forth. When you, as the Republican frontrunner, give an answer that makes it sound like a complicated question,
That's bad.
that is just you.
There's no need for that.
That's you surrendering to the left on that issue. Because
Capitulation.
that's what the left wants. They want this to be a matter of opinion. They want it to be complicated. They want it to be the kind of question that you're nervous to answer, and it shouldn't be. Now,
Exactly. And so he needs to be clear. He needs to say, of course, a woman cannot become a man. A man cannot become a woman. It's obvious. It's clear. Case over. There should be no hemming and hawing about this. This is disappointing to hear Donald Trump talking like this.
said that there's no conceivable reason why you would not give a clear and concise answer, but one potential reason, there is one reason why you might not give a clear and concise answer, and that is if you're a Republican frontrunner making the mistake of trying to moderate for the general election.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the second.
Trying to do that.
Now, and that's the abortion question. Trump's answer there is wrong on multiple levels. It's morally wrong, 1,000%. It's not a terrible thing to protect human children from being slaughtered.
Yes, it's morally wrong, and this is the bothersome issue of what Trump is doing. He is not speaking morally. He is not coming at this from principle. He is coming at this more from a politician's standpoint. He's talking about opinion polls. He's talking about 90% of the people don't like late-term abortions. He's trying to craft his policy around opinion polls and polling data and political expediency instead of taking a moral stand. This is a moral issue. Abortion is a moral issue, so he needs to stand up and say, this is wrong, I will oppose it. That's it. That's what we want to hear.
It's not terrible. And, the spin from some of Trump's defenders is that, Trump was saying that it's a terrible mistake. He was saying that it's a terrible political mistake to sign a 5 or 6 week ban on abortion. Now, if that is what he was saying, that would also be wrong. We'll talk about that in a second. That's not a political mistake. But that's not what he said. Okay? We can all listen to what he said. He said what he said. And he said, it's a terrible thing and a terrible mistake. It's a terrible thing and a terrible mistake. That's what he said. He said that the ban, the heartbeat ban, is a terrible thing in and of itself. That is what he said.
So here is a politician, Ron DeSantis, and he's pushing for a 5 to 6 week cutoff on abortion. And Donald Trump says that is a terrible thing. It's not a terrible thing. Anytime you roll back the culture of death, anytime you push back the murdering of children in the womb, anytime you can limit that is a good thing, not a bad thing, not a terrible thing. So Donald Trump characterizes Ron DeSantis' position on abortion as a terrible thing when it's actually a good thing. The closer we can get to conception is the better option. So it would have been better if Ron DeSantis could have pushed back the limit to 3 or 4 weeks, or 2 weeks, or 1 week, or 0 weeks just at the moment of conception of illegal abortion. But he didn't. He was talking in terms of 5 to 6 weeks, which is quite a significant step in the right direction, and Trump characterizes that as terrible. What moral universe is Trump operating under? And I thought he was our pro-life president.
And worst of all, he said this to a mainstream media news anchor. Okay? I mean, it wouldn't be good to say that anywhere, but rather than going after her, rather than backing her into a corner, rather than embarrassing her, rather than throwing it back in her face, what, do you think we should kill human beings with heartbeats? Is that what you think? Hey, well, yeah, of course I support the ban, at 6 weeks. That's a human being.
Exactly.
Do you think it's not a human being? What is?
Exactly. And push it back to her. That's the way Trump usually operated back in 2016 when we first voted for him. He was aggressive. He would throw these questions back at the smart aleck reporters and say, look, what, you want to kill babies at 5 weeks? You want to kill babies at 6 weeks? What do you want? You want to kill babies at any point during the pregnancy? Are you advocating for murder? And he used to push the reporters and get aggressive with them and actually get a little belligerent with them. Now it seems like he's capitulating to them. He's trying to appease them. For what? For what reason?
What is it? Okay, what you call a fetus. What is it, if not a human being? Can you tell me that? So that's a direction he could have gone and embarrassed her. She wouldn't have been able to answer that. If he threw the question back at her, she would have said something like, well, so the people are different, I don't know, it's a human being. She would have equivocated. She wouldn't be able to say one way or another. And then you can go back to, so you're not sure if the child is a human being at 6 weeks, and yet you're sure that we should be able to kill the child, even though you don't even know if it's a human or not. Could have gone that way. Instead, he goes the other way, and he comes out against heartbeat laws. So again, from a moral perspective, what he's saying is totally wrong. What about the politics of it? Between the Megyn Kelly stuff, and I mean the whole interview, not just the stuff about men becoming women.
So he's against the heartbeat laws. Again, this is incomprehensible. He's supposed to be our most pro-life president of the last decades or so, and he's now coming against heartbeat laws? I mean, I thought he was on our side as far as against abortion. I thought he was actually an advocate of eliminating abortions. But now, in this election cycle, he seems to be saying, well, let's come together somewhere in the middle and reach a point where everyone can be happy. That is not going to be happy. That is not going to happen. And he is fooling himself if he thinks he can broker that. That's just vanity. He's not that good of a businessman, and this is not going to be solved by business techniques. So very, very disturbing here as to what Donald Trump is saying, because it's just off in so many ways.
Between that and Meet the Press, Trump is very clearly and very unsubtly making a move to the middle. He's moderating.
Yes,
and in fact, his supporters will admit this. This has been the defense of his statements in those interviews. The defense is, very openly, well, he's in a general election now for all intents and purposes. He's looking past the primaries and he's running against Biden, and so that's why he's not running against his Republican challengers because they're so far behind. He's running against Biden. He's moderating. It's a general election.
He's moderating. That's the problem.
Now, it's true that he should be running essentially a general election campaign. He's probably going to be the nominee. That's the most likely thing, obviously. He needs to be running against Biden, and I've been saying that forever, which is why it makes no sense that he spends most of his time attacking DeSantis. He's attacked DeSantis far more than he's attacked Biden, and there's no question about that. Even in that answer, when he's asked about abortion, he could pivot to Biden's extremism on abortion and say, well, Biden believes in abortion up until birth.
Exactly.
This guy's a lunatic. Instead, he pivots to DeSantis's what Trump considers extremism on abortion.
Exactly. And this is the way that some of the weak and squishy and inconsistent evangelicals treated Trump, actually, in the 2016 and 2020 elections. The so-called, evangelicals for Biden, that group that I did a video on a few years ago. They were criticizing Trump in this, that, and the other, and left Biden totally unscathed. So their main concern was the problems with Trump. They looked totally past all of the total immoral inconsistencies with Biden, total immorality of the Democratic Party, and just attacked Trump and the Republican parties. And now we have Trump starting to do that now. He's attacking DeSantis and more pro-life positions in an effort to, win the middle in the election?
Right, even in that move, that can't be defended on moral or political grounds. If you're trying to beat Biden, why wouldn't you rather than bringing every answer back to attacking DeSantis, bring it back to attacking Biden? Now, so I agree. I agree that he should be basically strategically looking past the primaries and going and running a general election campaign and going after Biden all the time. He shouldn't even be talking about DeSantis. I'm not saying he needs to go out and sing DeSantis' praises. I mean, DeSantis is an opponent. This is politics. But from a political perspective, the smartest thing would be just to ignore him, to ignore everybody in the primaries and just focus on Biden. So that leaves the question, even if I don't like it, like the moderating of tone, moving to the left, moving to the middle, even if it makes my blood boil to hear a politician go squishy on abortion and go squishy on basic biology, is it a clever strategy politically? Okay? No. Is it more likely to get him elected? Can we make a kind of Machiavellian ends justify the means sort of argument here?
No.
Would that argument be accurate, at least? Will these tactics win the general election? My answer is emphatically no, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And the reason that Trump won in 2016 was that he was not squishy on abortion, and he was not squishy on the issues that matter most for Christians and Orthodox Jews and those in the Judeo-Christian heritage in our country. The reason that he got so much enthusiasm and so many votes is that he was not squishy. He was not waffling. He was very clear. He said, okay, I am going to go to the Heritage Foundation, Federalist Society, and the Federalist Society is going to pick out, select excellent Supreme Court judges, candidates, and I will select from those judges that I get from the Federalist Society. Okay, so as Christian, we say, great, we'll finally get some judges who actually read the Constitution and interpret it. And when they do that, they will see that Roe v. Wade is not constitutional law, and they'll reverse it. Well, that's exactly what they did. And that's exactly what Trump did. He went to the Federalist Society, got the list of judges that were vetted by the Federalist Society, and he appointed only those, and they overturned Roe v. Wade. So he did good when he took firm stands. But this idea now that he's going to win people who really, hated him before or are in the middle, undecided, this is crazy. He's abandoning the very thing that people voted for him in the first place, and that was that he took clear stands and he wasn't afraid to confront the liberals. He wasn't afraid to confront the mainstream media, promoting the Democratic talking points. He was not afraid of confronting them and being the hero, the challenger, who would take on the liberal Democratic establishment on abortion, on LGBTQ issues, although less so on those. We've always been known that he's kind of been squishy on LGBTQ issues, but at least he did not do anything that would promote them necessarily. But he was very strong on abortion. And this indication now that he is not strong on abortion is very disturbing. It's very sad to see someone who has been in the past very strong and very reliable in his opposition to the pro-abortion industry. Although he could have done more, we know that he could have done more. For example, he could have pushed more and more against funding of Planned Parenthood. He could have done some other things more, but he was the first president of the United States to actually speak at the March for Life in Washington, D.C. in January. I was there at that gathering, at that rally, and he was the very first president to ever appear at the March for Life. So he was very strong, very much with conviction that he would appoint pro-life judges. He did so, and Roe v. Wade is now history. It's gone. It's done. And thank God for that. But this new Donald Trump approach, where you try to moderate the abortion issue, you try to say, well, I'm going to appeal to both sides, the pro-abortion and the pro-life, and I'm going to get them all at the table, and I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to help broker a deal between them that everyone will be happy. This is pure nonsense. The reason why the abortion debate has raged for 50 years is because nobody is able to do that. Nobody is able to do that. Because if you do what DeSantis did, for example, have a limit at 5 or 6 weeks, then you outrage the pro-abortion people and the Democrats and the blue state citizens, and you don't win them. But you're applauded by the pro-life people. Not that you've gone far enough. They want, we want total ban on abortion. We don't want any point that a woman can kill her baby. But you win kudos from the pro-life position for 5 or 6 week ban because it's a positive step. But you're not going to please everyone, whatever you do. You're always going to anger someone. So we need to pray for Donald Trump because there really isn't any Republican candidate that will be strong enough to take on the Democratic, whether it's Biden or whoever. And we need to pray that Trump sees the light, returns to his position, his solid pro-life position, and puts away this nonsense about he's going to appease everyone. So keep him in your prayers. We'll talk to you next week. God bless.